If you like Psych with Mike, here's a couple of ways that you could really help us out. You could subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Psych with Mike. But the two things that would really, really help us out is subscribing to us on YouTube, search Psych with Mike, but also going to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a review and a comment. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Do you want to repeat that?
No.
Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
All right.
And we were just discussing that it is probably not a good idea to ever do anything that you would not want televised on YouTube on a Zoom call, even if you think that the cameras are off. Right?
Actually, there are people that say you shouldn't do anything that you don't want recorded and dispersed. If you have a Alexa or a Google machine.
Oh, yeah. I don't have one. Do you have one?
I have an Alexa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a useful tool.
I don't have one, and I keep, like now, so for people who don't know, you'd have no reason to know, we're recording this just as we're entering into the Christmas season, so we've been inundated with advertisements this year for Christmas even early, because I think people are trying to make up ground. And so I see those commercials for these things, and I'm always like, oh, I should get one of those. And then I think that exactly is, what is that thing doing when I think it's dormant?
Well, there are lots of the sky is falling commentators out there who say, you're giving up all your privacy, and the government can get it, and big tech can get it, and marketers can get it. I mean, you walk down an aisle in Target, and you stop to look at toilet paper. All of a sudden, you get an ad from Target on that toilet paper sale on your phone. I mean, they know where you are. They know what you buy.
Right.
So if you're really worried about privacy and secrecy and all that,
then don't use an electronic device at all.
At all, exactly.
Yeah.
But as a culture, you have to have some informational awareness to make good decisions. So that would be the challenge.
I keep messing with my headphones because I'm not comfortable. Yeah, I don't know why.
I have nothing.
So,
But I have an Alexa, and I can come in and say, Alexa, what's the weather? And she'll tell me. Or what's the news? And she'll tell me.
Yeah.
If there's something from Amazon that's been delivered to the front door, it'll glow a certain color.
Oh, really?
It'll tell me there's a notification. I'll say, Alexa, what's the notification? Oh, well, you just had a package delivered. Now, if I had a Ring, if I had a truly modern electronic house, there's a lot more that I could do with that device. Even the new smart TVs and stuff, you can tell Alexa, find this show and turn it on, and she will. So there's super, super convenience, but it's like any other tool. You have to learn how to use it responsibly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
know some people that use computers as hammers.
Right. 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 Or paperweights.
Yeah.
When I get ready to take the plunge, I will let you know. It can't be much longer. I mean, I don't know how much longer I can.
I don't do 20% of what it's capable of doing. I mean, you can say things like, Alexa, tell me a joke. And,
Are they any good?
Third grade humor.
Yeah.
They're not real sophisticated.
It'd be a good job. It'd be a good joke for you to use to go trick-or-treating.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Were I still at 73 wanting to go trick-or-treating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although this year,
I would need soft candy. My teeth are starting to go. My eyes are starting to go.
Nobody was trick-or-treating during the pandemic.
No.
Did people trick-or-treat?
Not at my house. I didn't have an opportunity.
Yeah.
I wasn't about to play into that.
Yeah, I wasn't going to play into it either. But I didn't know. I've actually never seen any statistics on whether or not people did or not.
It got subsumed by other
things.
News,
yeah. And we were going to talk about that a little bit today. So we are right now recording on the Friday after the election. We still don't know who the President of the United States is, but one of the things that I have seen this week, just even in my practice, is the division of attitudes that people have depending on what their political orientation is?
I don't know if it's added. Well, define your terms.
Yeah.
To me, it's an emotional sweep. It's not an intellectual or rational sweep. I have some good friends that are educated and very bright, have technical credentials out the wazoo, and I respect them for their intellect. But we are poles apart in what we believe is going on in the country and what the best path forward is.
Right.
And as I watched the election returns come in, I found myself getting really depressed. Not about who was winning or losing, but about my misunderstanding of the level of division in this country. Because a conceit of mine has always been to have friends of multiple stripes, friends from every different domain. And I feel like I've done a good job of doing that throughout my lifetime. But there's obviously something that I have missed in terms of what drives, motivates these people. How do they understand the world so differently from the way that I understand it? And one of the challenges is, and you know one of my friends who is this way, he's your friend too, how can we discuss these things and do it in a civil way, in a respectful way, and find areas, if possible, of commonality and areas of disagreement where we say, well, we have to agree to disagree. The facts that I see don't match the facts that you see, or if they are facts. And then beneath the facts, there is your emotional situation. Are you flooded? Are you anxious? Are you angry? Do you feel cheated by life? You know, what's going on that supports that side of the coin? And then they're thinking the same thing about me. What's going on with you that you don't see this more clearly than you do? Why have you sold your soul to this particular ideology or methodology? And they throw out buzzwords like communism and socialism and stuff. And they say, well, let's define these terms. What do you mean by this term? What do you mean by that term? Can we find an area of agreement? Or, because I want to step back and have a conversation. But I have to confess that I get emotionally flooded, and I'm questioning myself in terms of my objectivity because I didn't see as clearly as I can see today the level of division. So what do we do? How do we move forward to find a way to be more respectful, more compassionate, to have empathy for people that don't believe the way that we believe?
Right.
And I think that's the real challenge in this country.
And we don't know, obviously, at this point, we don't know what the results are going to be. We suspect that it's going to be in favor of Joe Biden, but that hasn't been determined yet. But early on, the way that the map was divided, it looked like that the result was going to be 270 to 268 one way or the other. And I was really afraid of that being the case, because if that happens, then we have a polarization of the country that is almost exactly 50-50. And I don't know how we resolve that. My idea is, I started doing some TikTok stuff, and I'm not even joking. On Wednesday, I was crestfallen. I was upset with the way that I felt that the mood was in the country. And so I just went on TikTok and said, look, man, it doesn't matter who wins or loses. If we choose to love and respect each other, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if we don't, then it doesn't matter who wins. The world's going to be on fire. And I got vitriol back. Okay. And, so I just responded to that with, you can have whatever opinion you want. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just promoting my message, and if that isn't what you want, then don't take it. But I'm still going to choose to love and respect you anyway. And I got an outpouring of support for that. And so I think that is something that we can do regardless of what side of the political fence we're on. But I don't know that we choose to do that.
Well, and I think that we really need to rethink the way people consume information or obtain information, because there are agenda-driven media components on both sides of the spectrum that manipulate the data so that it's hard to know fact from opinion.
Right.
Classic, the type of reporting that I learned when I was in high school and college and worked on the school newspapers, where you identify the 5 basic who and where, why,
Right.
how facts and put them in the story, and you write it that way, and you keep your opinions and interpretations of things to yourself, unless you're on the editorial page where you can say whatever you want, but it's clearly identified as an editorial. Well, none of the mass media does that anymore. You don't have factual reporters, except the very lowest level man on the street corner, but even they are invited to offer their opinions and do, and then the talking heads just sell. Right. They sell whatever their agenda is.
Right.
And they make money out of agitation.
And
on both sides.
We recognize that people who believe in that type of media and consume that type of media probably disagree with that evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely. But then an additional factor, other countries who have an agenda to weaken the United States play with that as well, because so many of our people seem now, currently, to consume whatever information they think they're getting from social media and not from news outlets,
right.
Not from newspapers, not from traditional news channels.
Right.
So there are a lot of elements to this sucker. And I think what you said a minute ago is most important for this conversation today. Somehow we have to remove our intense emotional investment on being right on this. It's a good day to die, here I stand, to looking at the question of how can we live in a common space without hostility and animosity and violence, hatred. Can we find a way to be mutually respectful and appreciative? And I think that's the most important goal.
I had a client who this week said to me that they have not felt this anxious in the United States since 9/11. And what I said was, it's two different things. On 9/11, we were America against the world. That was a unifying situation. There may have been anxiety and trauma that was experienced, but that unified us as a people. This divides us. And to me, the reason that we started talking about this was I had sent you an article about how the division between who you were going to vote for is tearing apart families. Yeah. And we've talked about this before with in-groups and out-groups. If we always are vilifying other people as an out-group, then it becomes very easy and very natural to hate them. If we see the other people as an in-group, it doesn't matter how diverse we are, we're all pulling for the same thing. It's like a sporting team, right? So a sporting team can be a very, very diverse group of individuals, but they're all fighting for the same goal, and they can be very, very cohesive because they're an in-group. And we could do that in the United States, even though we may not always agree politically, but I don't see us choosing to do that. I see us choosing to look at each other as outgroups.
Well, we're being conditioned and trained to do that. Yeah. And again, for your client's situation, we've had 8 months of pandemic fear and anxiety that disrupted our lifestyle. Many of us lost jobs. Many of us are faced with homelessness because our rent's due and we can't pay it, and the landlords want the space. We're not eating. We're not living our lives as we lived them before, and that creates a lot of displacement sensation, a lot of anxiety and fear. And then on top of that division, the upheaval in your lifestyle, you have all this political rigmarole that also is an upheaval in your lifestyle, depending on who wins the race and what their political agendas may or may not be. And is it always going to be a scream fest, a yelling match of hatred and hostility? Is it going to be an absolutist, I'm right and you're evil perspective? Or can we do something about compromise and communication? I remember growing up in the late 50s and 60s and early 70s when America was proud. People were proud, and they postulated that part of what made them proud was that people like the Republican leader in the Senate and the Democratic leader in the Senate, who fought tooth and nail for their particular agendas, would go out to dinner, sponsor each other's children, do things with and for each other as friends, but then go in and fight for their particular piece of the pie. We've gotten so rigidified, solidified, isolated into our little compartments that that's not done anymore. They don't go out to dinner. They don't even necessarily live in D.C. anymore. A lot of the younger congressmen sleep in their offices rather than rent a place. And so they live in the Capitol building, go to the gym, go to the cafeteria, and do those things. But they eat and sleep getting themselves reelected. And I've read that members of the House of Representatives have to spend they're required by their political parties to spend X number of hours a day on the phones calling donors asking for money. They have to raise a certain amount of money. And that's not doing the business of the country.
No.
That's not studying the issues at hand.
Right.
That's, so lobbyists and experts come in and say, well, here's the package, pass this one. It's just a very complex problem. And I think there's an opportunity now. I think that the divided government that we're going to have going forward, presuming that Biden wins the election as president, and that the Senate is still either very, very close or still in Republican hands, and the control of the House has shrunk by at least 8 votes, maybe a couple more that may come in. So everybody's going to have to talk to each other instead of scream past each other if they want to get anything done.
If they want to get anything
done. So
the
question is, do they want to get anything done?
That's
and
exactly
if so, what? I mean, because you have infrastructure questions, you have healthcare questions, you have pandemic solution questions, you have economic regularity, the living wage, the taxes. I mean, you have all those things that are out there that need to be addressed. So how do you prioritize, and how do you swap and trade? Because that's what happens in a divided government where people are respectful of one another.
So let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to open this up into a new direction. Hey, Brett, if you were going to tell somebody to check out something on the internet to help them with their mental health, what would you tell them?
I tell them, listen to Psych with Mike.
Why would you tell them that?
Because it's probably one of the most easily listenable experiences you can have that will give you information that's useful for a whole spectrum of concerns that people have.
I agree, and I have actually been told that by at least a dozen people, several of whom were not married to me, and some of them didn't even know me.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It's when we get that kind of feedback from people, it is so incredibly humbling and overwhelming for me.
It is for both of us.
Yeah. So we really appreciate it, and as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.
Okay.
All right, we're back, and so, the article that I sent you was about families which are
from U.S. News and World Report.
Yeah.
And about how families are splitting
right
over these divisions.
So, there probably isn't an in-group that we think of that's more cohesive than a family.
You didn't grow up in my family.
Well, I'm just saying, as a rule, most of us probably would say blood is thicker than water. I mean, there's all kinds of adages that we use.
Just remember, fact versus opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but if families are dividing over the issue of who somebody in the family politically supports,
clan, tribe, nation.
Right.
So family is the underlying firmament upon which it's all built.
So if somebody came to you and said, my wife and I can't live together anymore because one supports one candidate and one supports the other candidate, what would you propose would be the way you would work with those people to try and bring them back together?
I would say, how can we calm this thing down? Let's don't rush to a decision. You have a history together of however many years. You have a commitment. You have an invested relationship. Is it worth throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Can we slow down and reframe the way we understand what's going on here? Is there something underneath this that you're irritated with each other about? And there may be. And can we discuss it? Have you traditionally resolved disagreements? How do they play out? Does one win and one lose? Are there compromises? Let's don't just get caught up in a ball of explosive steam and destroy our world. Let's slow down. Let's take some perspective. Let's start trying to talk to each other, and let's do a little reflective listening. I hear you. You said this to me. And when you said this to me, this is the feeling that I was getting from you. Did I hear you accurately?
Right.
No. Okay, well, then can you please tell me again?
Right.
So, you know, we do this in therapy all the time.
Right.
And that exact formula. Please do reflective listening. So that means I've got to say, this is what I hear in the words that you're using, but this is what I see in your nonverbals.
Right.
So I need to listen on both channels in order to accurately hear you. So when I tell you what I think I've heard, then I have to ask you, did I get it? And if you say no, then I have to say, well, do it again until I get it.
And I think that if two people are willing to do the work, that we could repair that. I think that anybody who is living in a family and they feel polarized and divided or have even split up, you know, whether it's a mother and a father, a mother and a
well, this article talks about
Yeah.
mothers and children that say, well, you're not my mother anymore.
Right.
Or
And
husbands
spouses.
wives. Father, son.
But it would require the two people being willing to do the work.
But you also have to look for patterns. What's the history in this relationship? What's the dynamic of connectivity, empathy, problem solving, commitment? Because it's not just this is the point of the spear. There's something else behind it.
But what my fear is while we could do that on an individual dyadic means two, dyadic level, we could repair the relationship between two people if those two people were willing to do the work. I don't know what we do for a nation. You know, when you talk about, in the 50s and 60s, there was more cohesion, people would say, yeah, but there was institutional racism. We had 3 networks, and they promoted an agenda that supported
not any different from what they're doing now.
Yeah, white supremacy.
Just more subtle.
Yeah. But now there's so much information, you can get everybody's opinion, and it's all virtually of equal weight because it all comes through your device, and now you just tailor what you are exposed to that's based on what you already believe, so confirmation bias. And so as a nation, how would we do what we do for 2 individuals for the country? Can we do that?
I think we have to. I think that's the goal moving forward, and I think that requires leadership that's open to that proposition, that will invite people from multiple camps to come into the discussion and attend to them respectfully. And I think that's what used to be done as a formalized pattern. So if you just come in and say we have to burn the whole thing down, then you don't have much hope.
No.
You have to say there are institutional foundations that hold our society together, and individually we need to have some integrity with our response to that, which may mean that I don't get my way. I don't get to say, well, you're wrong and I'm right.
I think that's what people have lost, though, is the ability to accept I may not get my way.
It's like raising a child. You know, anger is original issue equipment. You're going to get angry. The job of the parent is to teach the child how to appropriately express their anger. I can't lash out and punch somebody at the service station just because I'm mad about something. Maybe it didn't even have anything to do with him or the service station. Just I'm mad, and he's an opportunity cost. If I don't learn how to control that within myself, then I'm going to have a difficult life.
And what I keep going back to in my mind when I think about this issue is our friend Eric Kaufman. You remember him? Yeah. He's been on a couple of times, and he's very much in this vein of leadership training. And when we've had him on, what he's consistently talked about is that each individual has to be their own leader. And that what that means is that each of us has to take responsibility for the piece of this puzzle that we have control over. None of us have control over everything, but all of us have control over something. So did you see the podcast today drop?
No.
Okay, so the podcast today was on the difference between pro-social behavior and altruism. You remember when we did that? Right. Well, the artwork that I found for that was a quote by Ronald Reagan. We can't help everybody, but everybody can help someone. And I think
Albert Schweitzer said, "Don't curse the darkness, light a single
Yeah,
candle."
right.
You know, I mean,
And-
these are old aphorisms,
but
they have value.
but yes,
Yeah.
they're the reason that they've endured is because they have value and they are true. But each of us,
truisms become truisms for a reason.
yeah, because they stand the test of time.
Yeah.
But each of us has to take the responsibility on ourselves to be able to.
Well, and one way to do that is to
that.
step back and, I mean, I remember growing up in a different world, and something that I heard on a regular basis is 100 years from now, will this make a difference in the cost of price of tea from China? You know, you have to step back and ask yourself, you're so passionately invested in achieving this thing, whether it's a college degree, a job, a promotion, a reward, a car, a house, whatever. If you put your sense of self into that trigger point, you get lost. It can be important. It can be passionately important, but you still have to have some perspective. You have to recognize that life is larger than this, and the time frame is longer. So 10 years down the road, will I be as passionately committed to this?
But that requires
Perspective. Yeah.
Individual perspective, and acceptance of responsibility. Anybody whose family has fractured over this election, or really anything, that feels like the chasm is too large to be able to be bridged is wrong.
But it's
If
also
they're willing to do the work.
If it's really, really toxic, give yourself permission to walk away
Well,
from
okay,
it.
yeah. Okay, okay, we're back. We actually had a technical issue, but we're back.
We're going to have to fire our producer.
Oh man, yeah. No, unfortunately,
I hope his family will be able to eat.
Unfortunately, he works really cheap.
Yeah, well, it's already a question about his family. Yeah.
So I know you hate this, but I'm going to say it because I'm ornery. Yeah, we got to land this plane. So,
You want me to land it?
Yeah.
Okay, I knew that you were going to ask me that. What our conclusion is, because we don't agree on everything either, and we have some intense and heated discussions at times, but we remember our commitment to one another, our affection for one another, the fact that we're all in this together, and none of us get out of it alive. So my advice at this point, you can offer your interpretation, but my advice is step back, take a deep breath, let all of that adrenaline flow out of your system, then look around and see, where are you? What do you need to do next? What's the next step? Like they say in AA, one day at a time, one step at a time. But remember your affection, your commitment, your empathy, your history with people, and your perception historically of this country and what you want it to look like, and move things in that direction.
And what I would say to people is, if the definition of egocentrism that was promoted by Jean Piaget is the inability to recognize that people have perceptions that are different from yours, is that we've lost that, and that we can't live in a collective society, nation, family, and everybody get their way all the time. It requires an understanding and an acceptance that give and take is the nature of being in relationships. But we are coded in our DNA to be in collective relationships. And it feels like to me that we've gotten to a point where everybody says, if I don't get my way, then I'm not going to play ball. That is not healthy for the human being.
So you were saying, in summary, that we all just need to be more Piagetian.
Absolutely. All right. So remember that we would love for you to go on to Apple Podcasts and leave us a comment and rate the show. That is super helpful for us. The music that appears on Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.